That's when I figured out what Whoop, there it is, meant.
There it is, folks. Yes, there it is. We are here back and live with another episode of UnDisrupted Podcast, channeling our inner mid-90s hip hop anthems. Tag team back again. Check it to record. Let's begin. Okay, so if you could,
I thought you were going to keep going with it.
I know that's as much as you get.
Yes.
Our opening debate today, before we invite up our guest, is Adam. If you had the power, if you were this master teacher and you oversaw all the other teachers in the universe, well, in the educational world at least,
yes,
what would be one homework assignment you would give them?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Since it's an imaginary world that we have, I'm going to go ahead and give myself some imaginary powers to make this homework assignment happen. I would actually make every teacher have like a Freaky Friday, like the movie, where they become a kid for a day and they get a chance to experience that. Because think about how much education has changed since we were kids to now. And yeah, you're in the space, but you're looking at it as an adult. But living it just for a day, I think they could get a different perspective on what their students are going through, whether it's, the drama with cell phones or life at home. Like, just as a kid, just relive it for a minute, because it's been a long time since we've been kids. Having that for one day, I think would be a homework assignment that would change a lot of educators in this space.
That was the most eye-opening PD I ever got. I always tell people this was the day I dressed up as a high school student. I went to high school at the high school I worked at and just saw the lens. And it wasn't to observe teachers. It was to observe what the students were doing, what their day-to-day interactions were. So if we can do this homework with magical powers, Adam, now that's a different question, but I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to say, I would ask the teachers to transport to 15 years from now to see the students that they're working with, what their lives are going to look like. So again, keeping that end in mind, keeping the future in mind of what's happening in this next generation and how all of this AI and magic stuff is going to all kind of evolve and change as my dog finally sees the squirrel outside.
So basically, you want teachers to have the Back to the Future almanac.
The Biff. They want to be more like Biff. And with that, we invite on stage, not Biff, ladies and gentlemen, AJ Juliani, friend of the show, friend of the podcast. We've known AJ way back when. He's the head of learning development and the founder of Adaptable Learning. AJ, welcome to the show. Where are you at? What's the homework assignment you're giving all teachers?
Well, thanks again for having me. And my homework assignment is I would like to see how fast they could get done all their work for a week if they used AI to help them do all of it. Oh. And then what would be the reflection after doing that? So it's like all the stuff they need to do, presentations, grading, all the different things that they need to do, paperwork, everything. How fast could you get it all done in a week? And your reflection on that. I would love to just hear what the thought was around that process.
Yeah, and what would they do if, with the extra time that that was taken from the administrivia stuff that you're talking about? I call it administrivia, which is just that little busy work. And there's some stuff that isn't too. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I'd have them do everything though, and just see like what parts do we value as keeping human, and what parts you're like, no, that's good. Let's use the tech for it.
I like that. Just go all in. Just don't dip a toe in. Just jump in deep.
All in for a full week. For a full week, just see what happens.
Okay.
I like that, because then you really get a chance to see where those gaps are in the technology. Because there's things that it does extremely well. There's things that not so good at doing.
Yeah. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think there'd be a whole lot of conversation, and instead of just kind of dipping your toe here or there, you're all in. See what it's like.
Love it.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I know you are deeply involved in educational innovation. I mean, you're talking about the AI component there. So what aspects of the next generation of schools excite you the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that excites me the most is that we have to go to a place of meaning and relevance. Like in a world where any of the final products that we normally assess, papers, projects, presentations, can be done so easily with technology now, we can't. What's the point of assessing a final project if I don't know if kids actually did it? And what's the point of kids actually spending time doing it if they're just jumping through hoops? So I think the most exciting thing to me is if it's not meaningful and relevant, then there's no real reason for kids to do it anymore. And so we have to jump back into that. And I think oftentimes pandemic, everything, people are like, oh, this is going to change every education. Then it normally doesn't change education.
Yeah.
Now we have this compliance-based model that actually has something that I think is going to tweak it and change it here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we just go more compliance, but I'm kind of excited for that future.
That compliance-based model is such a such a great way of putting it. My kids, I've taught them like when to play. They even say the game of school. They say it to me. They're like, Dad, I'm just playing the game of school with this, getting my A because that's what I have to do because I'm quiet in class. And we found out with my little one, she had spent 2 or 3 years without really developing any math skills at all. But, she kept getting a 93 in math. And turns out it's because she's quiet and everyone's just such a sweet kid. So, I mean, that she didn't learn anything. So now we're catching her up on the back end of this. Again, just giving her those skills. It's interesting. You mentioned, assessment is a part of this too. So my question for you is, standardized testing was like, remember that used to be the big thing, by the way, that we worried about. It's like, oh my God, standardized testing. Now there's so much other stuff with funding and finance and everything else. But I do think it's interesting, is there a way, or is it possible? We've asked this on a previous show too. Like, should we start assessing other things besides those core areas? I mean, there's a kind of a double-edged sword to this, right? Should we start assessing creativity to a higher level? Should we start assessing what you're talking about there, that student kind of agency and authenticity? Is that something you feel like we should be assessing, or should we push it more toward like design thinking and those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think assessment is a double-edged sword there. Anytime we try to assess things collectively, we try to find standardized ways to do it. So the worst thing I think would be like, let's assess creativity now. And now it's this big standardized way.
Yeah.
Creativity. So I would say, no, please don't start doing that. But I think what you're bringing up is we have to really start assessing the learning process. Yeah. And the term that I've been using a lot is we need to get kids to defend their learning, much like we would in a dissertation. You can't just grade the dissertation, especially in today's world. It's that defense. Can you talk about why you chose what you did, why you took this path, that type of thing. For example, instead of kids just handing in math problems that they completed for homework, have them hand in 2 to 3 short little videos where they walk through their steps and the process of how they're solving the problems. That gives teachers such a better view of what learning's happening than just seeing what they did on Delta Math, in which case they're seeing nothing.
Right. I think parents out there listening, this is interesting. I've used a similar technique with my own kids when it comes to them wanting something. Like, I tell them they have to pitch me because it's a life skill too of pitching somebody. So you want the pet turtle, pitch me on, design a pitch deck, sit us down, tell us what it's going to cost us, what you're going to do, how you're going to upkeep it, what are the things if it doesn't get fed and all this. Or if you want Snapchat, like my 15-year-old at the time did, I was like, tell me, what's it going to change your life? How's it going to make your life better? Again, and then that skill set of being able to pitch and like you call it, defend your learning. I like that because it does bring in a lot more. You have to know your content really well to really stand up and face the firing squad or a Shark Tank or whatever. Well, that's an interesting concept. I love it.
Man, it's so cool. I mean, it's one of those things when you think about alternate forms of assessment that we've been talking about for decades now. I remember back in my day in the classroom using Explain Everything on the iPads. I used to have my students, when we were doing balancing chemical equations, that was their thing to solve a problem and then narrate how they solved that problem and submit that. And if they did that to me, they wouldn't have to take the assessment on it because you've already explained that to me. It's like, why do you need to do 15 problems where you can explain to me how to do those problems in a method that you're okay with? Now, that was years ago. So I can only imagine what the teachers could do now with the technology that they have with students being able to create their own content around their knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Adam, what class did you teach?
I taught chemistry, physical science.
Right. And like, if I said to you, hey, at the end of the year, is there like 5 questions, obviously multi-part questions that your students could answer that would show you that they really knew it? You'd probably say yes. You'd probably be able to create that. Yeah. We do that almost for every single subject. And yet instead we mess around with just having test after test after test after checkpoint when we know that it doesn't lead to any retention. So what are we doing? What's the point of even giving these tests if 3 months later, they're forgetting most of what they got even right on it? I think what you're talking about is such a better way to assess the learning process and not just counting on that final product to do it.
So let me ask you this question, because we often hear about AI and it's going to dumb down our students. They aren't going to get those skills. And we've all heard this year after year for whatever tech comes out. When the internet came out, we were hearing that, they're going to be Googling everything. I'm pretty sure people started saying that when books were being written. We're going to lose our brains because we're writing things down. So as we see technology being utilized, with AI being utilized, how can we ensure that it's used for enhancements of teaching and learning and not just a crutch that's going to diminish critical thinking?
Yeah, well, I think it's tough to ensure that, right? There's going to be tons of people that use AI for the wrong purposes, right? Me included too. Like some of the silly ways I'm using it.
Yes. I feel seen. Thank you, AJ. I feel bad doing it, but I'm glad you mentioned it first because there's some silly things we could do with AI. That's for sure. That's fun,
there's so much. So ensuring that I think is tough. But first off, we have to use it. I think that's the big thing here is like we got to use it, try different things out, see how the use cases are there, and also we got to model it ourselves as educators. I think there's this shift that we have to do from just worrying kids are going to use AI to avoid the learning to shifting our thinking to saying, all right, well, how can we use it to further their learning while still maintaining academic integrity? What are some of those, ways that come to mind? And that's, I think, the shift that a lot of us have to do. For me, I've seen it already in so many different circumstances where it's helping people that wouldn't have had help before. I actually think it's going to really probably be the biggest leveling of the playing field, right? Like I was working with a teacher, Adam, in New York, and she's a veteran teacher. She's 32 years old. We were looking at all these AI apps and different type of stuff. And she rose her hand and she's like, hey, some of my students have had AI their entire life. And I was like, what do you mean by that? She's like, yeah, those kids that have two parents at home and care about their education and want them to get A's, they've been living with AI their whole life.
Yep.
Right? But now all of a sudden, it's a leveling playing field where everybody has access to that type of help and support. That's an amazing thing if you kind of come at it from that angle.
I mean, that is so true because Carl and I were having this conversation, about 2 years ago at FETC. We were talking about AI, and it has the ability to level the playing field and give the common man, if you will, access to things that they normally didn't have access to. Carl, we were talking earlier about making clips out of videos and the fact that you can run an AI tool and do that. And it's a paid tool, but think about on the other side, before that, you'd have to pay thousands of dollars to have somebody edit film and add captions and do all this stuff. Now you can easily do that with a couple clicks.
Yeah. All the film editors out there are now cringing and closing their ears like, no, don't do that. We see that. And that's always the flip side of this, right, AJ? It's like you come up with a new innovation. Whenever I show like my Kyrie Aoki things where it's like, oh, look at this amazing, this fun art, and you can sing a song based on the lyrics, and people are always like, that's great. But what about the artist, And so what's your candid, because these are the two things I'll bring up to you, and I want to see what your responses are, because I've been hearing that you and I do a lot of work in this field out there in the masses. And I hear the latest concerns I keep hearing is what about who owns it, copyright, all of that. Mm-hmm. And the other one is the energy consumption. I don't know if you're getting that one, but I'm starting to get a little bit of that too. So I'd be curious, what are your takes on those two arguments? One is about the creativity, who owns it, and the other one about energy consumption with AI.
It's so interesting. I was just talking to John Spencer about this, so I know he's a friend of the pod as well.
And co-author of your books too,
of the Power Launch. But, he brought up something, I'll just reference him. He's like, the same thing happened in music when all of a sudden we had sampling and we had digital and synthesizers and all these different, maybe it's not just one person on an instrument, but it changed music almost for the better. New music forms came out, all different types of things. Like it evolved. Napster came along. It evolved music. But we're just talking like how all these things are seen as challenges and people want to shut it down, but then it evolves and changes as long as people evolve and change and adapt with it. And I'll give the music one just one more thing. Have you any of you trying to get ticket prices to a concert recently?
Right. It's like tripled in like the last 2 years.
I mean, we can listen to any song we want to, but people still want the human thing. So when folks say like, "Oh, it's going to get rid of art," no, it's not. It's going to make the human thing more valuable, just like the human performance in music is more valuable. And to jump on your energy consumption one, I get a lot of questions about that.
Okay.
And, the example I always bring up is, why don't you Google how much water and energy it takes to make that hamburger that you're eating on a Friday night versus the AI that you're using? Just go ahead and do it and come back to me and let me know. Everything that we do takes energy and water, and we do lots of things we don't need to do that take energy and water. So for AI being like, well, it's taking all its energy, most of the other things we do, including eating a cheeseburger, are 10, 50, 100 times more energy use and getting more energy while AI is getting less and less energy. So I think we need to look at it in terms of a continuum of energy use instead of just, oh, it's using energy.
Like the lady who asked me the question recently pulled up in her Suburban with her very blow-dried hair. And I'm thinking in my head, blow dryer, Suburban gas.
A lot of energy.
But yes, a lot of energy. Okay, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's funny because those things become talking points more than anything. Something that somebody can just say if they're against for whatever reason, it becomes that thing that they can say it uses a whole lot of energy. But I hadn't even thought about, well, have you looked up how much energy it takes to do this, or this?
The cheeseburger one is good because if you Google it right now, you'll see like there's a bunch of graphs that are hilarious talking about how much energy and water it takes to do the cheeseburger versus the AI. So it's a good one because you can pull it up and show people immediately.
I'm going to steal that in the future. Yeah. I what's interesting is, and I don't know how well you've gotten it or how much you follow like quantum chips and all the things that Google and Microsoft is making. To me, and they aren't there yet. I mean, they're just the early prototypes are out there yet. But to me, that's going to end up saving us. It's not going to cost as much energy, I guess, down the road, and it's going to process at a speed that's like phenomenal, right? What are your thoughts on quantum or at all? Because I feel like that's what's next. It's already coming, but in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, quantum scares me because I don't know enough to know what's going to happen, like most things. But I at least know that it is going to completely diminish the compute to such a small kind of finite amount that we're not going to really worry about compute anymore. Or like the cooling and all that kind of stuff. But I think quantum also has just huge implications for all kinds of things. Blockchain, all those different types of things that are out there because the compute is so powerful. I can't even wrap my mind around it. And I read books on it and different types. I got a whole book right here called Convergence, Artificial Intelligence and Quantum Computing. Great book. Blew my mind. Still don't know what I'm talking about with quantum. So yeah,
you have to read it. We have to read it a few times. Maybe have AI design like a little instructional videos around it.
Yes.
So
let me actually, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a prediction. I kind of want to get everybody's opinion on this one. So with the new change coming to the home unit that sits in your house, and I don't want to say her name because if I say it, she will start chiming right next to me. But they're about to come up with the AI assistant component on here. And so as I see this changing, we're getting more and more wearables with things of that nature. How soon do you think we are from truly having wearable AI companions around us? You know, that's going to be talking to you in real time, giving you feedback that's customized to your specific needs.
Yeah, I think Jarvis level AI companions are coming next year or two to anybody that wants them at all times, walking around with you. And it doesn't matter if you're on the go or at the house. I think that's very close to happening, if not already available. And then I think robots with that capability, 3 to 5 years, everybody's going to be leasing one just like we lease a car, $30K, make your payments, does your laundry, your dishes, cleans up stuff, does chores, all kinds of things for you. You just tell it and it'll do it. I think that's 3 to 5 years easy.
There's already prototypes out there for that stuff too. I mean, you've seen and then of course there's the other level of that is that I've seen the Japanese companion bots that are kind of getting into a weird kind of Black Mirror type. Where are we headed with this too with robotics? Yeah. But yeah, was it the thing that came out a couple of years ago that you could wear that like was it the AI pen or whatever?
Oh yeah.
That a couple folks we know tried them on and it like burned you or something. But
Yeah.
that was like the first iteration, right? As with new tech, it burns you. But that was the idea was, right, you could project on your hand and have it tell it things, and it kind of captured the day. And yeah, are we heading closer to the Black Mirror episode? Oh, maybe.
Yeah. And I think to your point, Adam, I think that there's going to be a whole host of people that love that. And there's going to be so many people that are just going even more Little House on the Prairie. And I think schools are going to run the same direction. There's going to be so many schools that are like, yes, we want to move down this direction. And so many schools that are going to be Waldorf, anti-tech, not using any of this stuff, classical education. I really think there's going to be more of a split than there is right now.
For those that can afford it. It's interesting. You and I, AJ, have talked, and Adam and I have talked about this too. And I don't want to give more promotion to a book, but a book about anxious people, let's just say, of a generation of anxious adults. Let's just say that, because again, not to promote that book, but one of the big things in the book that they talk about, the author talks about, is like, oh yeah, just pull kids out of schools with tech, put them in Waldorf schools, like you mentioned, go classical, get them, have them play more. But is that really the future? Or is that just, you're thinking that's just a niche for the people that feel like, well, we can do that because we can afford to do that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty big niche though, much bigger than it is right now. Yeah, I do. I mean, if you see the rise in homeschooling that's happened in our country and other countries, because you can homeschool, I guess, easier than you used to because of technology, which is the funny part. Because of technology, we can homeschool easier. I think you're already seeing that in the kind of the micro schools and stuff that are popping up. But I would assume over the next couple of years, that'll be a very big thing. People trying to get back to a more classical education that they feel comfortable with and isn't as threatening as some of these more tech-infused ones that we've seen kind of come from the ground up.
Cool. I want to ask you this question here before we wrap. You've got me thinking, AJ. I mean, the wheels are turning up here. And when we think about the technology, the overload, there's so many things coming out at our students right now. How can educators position themselves to have students find their passion still and work towards that versus all the stuff that we have that's thrown at them 24/7?
Yeah, Linda Stone's a very famous researcher, consultant, and she coined a term for what I think a lot of us are feeling right now. It's called continuous partial attention, where we give a little bit of attention to a whole lot of things all day long. And I think that's very true for most of us. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a very awful thing. As teachers and educators in school systems, I'd love to get a focus back to deep work. And passions and curiosity often lead deep work, right? And I think that's what's missing a little bit. Now, if you're playing a sports game, you're probably not thinking about your phone buzzing. If you're playing a musical instrument, you're probably not thinking about your phone buzzing, because these are like deep work type of things. And I think we really need to shift to more of that in school and less of kind of the chopped up, 40 minutes here, 20 minutes here, that type of thing. We have this whole notion that kids have a short attention span, so that we should just keep things moving, when in reality, let's get them doing stuff that is actually going to have them pay attention for longer periods of time. And that's where I think the passions come into play you're talking about.
Well, speaking about passion and then again, those interests, what are some things? One thing we like to ask our guests, the last question we always like to ask them on the show is like, what's something that you do to keep yourself undisrupted in this world of everything moving fast and, as you say, continuous partial attention?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved coaching. It's kind of been something I've always loved to do. And I coached high school and middle school for a really long time, but now I just coach my kids. And I coach actually lacrosse. And my son's lacrosse team just qualified for the World Series of lacrosse. It's like the Little League World Series for baseball, but of lacrosse. And we just qualified. We finished number 1 in the East qualifier, where a couple teams come out of. And it's set to take place in July. So, like, I'm pumped, man. A lot of my brain power is going to think about that, all that kind of stuff. It's like a huge week-long festivity. Team Israel, Japan, all these different teams are there.
Wow.
It's really cool. And we got a really good team. I spend a lot of time doing that with my son and his buddies, and it's a whole lot of fun.
What age group is he in?
So it's he's in 7th grade right now. So your 7th grade summer going to 8th grade is the only time you're allowed to qualify for it. Just like the Little League World Series for baseball.
Yeah.
That's it.
Wow.
My 7th grade girl is playing lacrosse right now too. That's why I was like, we need to connect after this. And so she just started though. She's not to the World League series that you're talking about, but
it's a fun sport.
Yeah.
It's totally like my hobby. Like people are like, oh, what do you spend your time doing? I'm thinking about 13-year-olds playing lacrosse way more than anybody else.
Takes your brain out of the AI world for a little bit. That's always good.
It does. Awesome.
So real quick, what kind of coach would you say you are if you had to compare your coaching style to like an NFL coach? Like, are you Bill Belichick over here?
Bobby Knight.
Bobby
Knight. Like, what kind of coach are you?
I think the term we're calling it these days is warm demander. But I think I'm a little more like actually a little more Sirianni than Belichick.
There we go.
I'll get after it a little bit. I think the kids vibe on my energy as well. You know what I mean? I had to throw an Eagles reference in there for Carl as well. And it seemed to serve Sirianni pretty well. 2 Super Bowls last 3 years and the championship. So I have more of that vibe where I can get a little feisty sometimes on the refs and a little bit, that type of thing. But it's a whole lot of fun. I'm not Bobby. Not that far. I'm not Danny Early.
Oh man, I just got this visual of AJ doing like the flying chest bumps of the 13-year-old. Come on, let's go.
All of my players are taller than me now, though, because they've all had puberty. So like I'm like in a huddle looking up at all of them, like talking. Hilarious.
That is awesome. Where can people find out more about you, AJ, and all the great work you're doing? Because I know you've written some books, and you had one that you were working on last time we talked. I don't know where that is yet on status. Coming out
April 1st. So I don't know when this is dropping.
This will be out after that. Yeah. So what's the book? Tell us about it.
But you can see everything at ajjuliani.com. That's spelled with a J, not a G. And so you'll be able to find it there. Had to let them know that, right?
Very important.
You can find everything there.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to the book. And again, this podcast will drop. They'll be listening to this in May. So the book is out. So go check out his site, ajjuliani.com. Thank you so much for joining us, AJ. Of course, as always, pleasure talking to you and always learning from you, with you along the way. So looking forward, and good luck to your son and that summer league, man. That's going to be crazy. That'll be fun.
World Series. Thanks, fellas. I appreciate everything you guys do.
Awesome. I thank all of you out there for joining us and being listeners out there. Be sure to subscribe, give us a shout out. You never know. We might even put it on a future show. This has been the UnDisrupted Podcast, brought to you by All for Ed. He's Adam. I always point the wrong way. And you could probably follow him at AskAdam3. You probably can. You can actually follow him at AskAdam3. I don't know why I said probably.
Probably, yeah. Unless Elon's taking me off social media, but we'll see.
Hey, yeah.
And he's Carl, and you can follow him at Hooker Tech. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are better together.
And we are better
UnDisrupted.
Whoop, there it is.